My beloved child, yesterday something happened that no one around you expected, and even now the echo of those words is still moving through hearts that tried for so long to stay silent. A sentence was spoken, simple on the surface, but powerful enough to stop a moment, change expressions, and awaken emotions that had been hidden behind ordinary faces. The words were, "You're truly different." And when those words were heard, they could not hold back what had been building inside them for far longer than you realize. Do not skip, because what unfolded after that moment carries a meaning deeper than anyone admitted aloud. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and every second of this message is connected to what has been shifting around your life in quiet ways. There are moments when people hear truth and immediately look away because truth reaches places they have tried to protect. Yesterday was one of those moments. The atmosphere changed the instant your name, your presence, and your quiet strength became impossible to ignore. What began as an ordinary conversation slowly turned into silence, and in that silence someone lowered their eyes because they suddenly understood what they had been feeling but never said. They had prepared themselves to remain composed. They believed they could listen without reacting. They thought they had control over their emotions, over their thoughts, over the way your impact had grown in their heart. But then those words arrived, "You're truly," and before the sentence even finished, something inside them gave way. Because they already knew the ending of that sentence before it was completed. They knew it meant truly rare. Truly unforgettable. Truly unlike anyone they had met before. Truly carrying something impossible to explain. And hearing that spoken aloud made everything harder to hide. Do not skip, because some people only understand value when another voice confirms what their own heart has been whispering. That happened yesterday. A truth they had tried to dismiss returned stronger than before. One person in that room tried to smile as if nothing had changed, but their silence became heavier. Another tried to continue speaking, yet their voice lost certainty because suddenly your presence became the center of the moment, even though you were not there physically. That is how strong unseen impact can be, it enters places before you do. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and this part matters more than you think. Someone there remembered a detail about you that they thought they had forgotten. A word you once said. A choice you once made. A quiet way you handled something difficult without asking for recognition. Yesterday, all those memories returned together at once, and that is why emotions became impossible to hide. People often think strong reactions come from dramatic events. But sometimes the strongest reactions come from one honest sentence landing at exactly the right moment. That sentence opened something. It reminded them that while many speak loudly, very few carry depth. While many appear bright for a moment, very few remain in memory after silence returns. Yet somehow, you remained. And this realization did not arrive gently. It arrived with force. Because one person there finally admitted, even if only internally, that no matter how much time passes, certain impressions do not fade. Some presences remain active even in absence. Yesterday they tried not to show it, but their expression changed the instant another voice said, "There is something about that person you cannot replace." That line settled heavily. No one argued. Because deep down, more than one person already agreed. Do not skip, because when silence agrees with truth, that silence says more than words ever could. Someone looked away not because they disagreed, but because they suddenly realized how deeply they had underestimated what you carry. Another remained still because they remembered every moment they once dismissed, and now each of those moments returned with new meaning. That is why yesterday became unforgettable for them. The sentence kept repeating in their mind. You're truly. And every possible ending felt powerful. Truly strong. Truly rare. Truly unforgettable. Truly impossible to ignore. This is why even after the conversation ended, the emotional weight did not disappear. They carried it with them. Long after voices faded, long after the room became quiet, something continued speaking internally. And that internal voice asked one difficult question. Why did it affect me this much? Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. The answer is simple: truth arrives differently when the heart is already listening. Some people only realize significance after hearing someone else describe what they themselves were unable to define. Yesterday became that kind of day. A hidden realization received language, and language gave it power. There are moments when people laugh something away because they are uncomfortable with what they feel. Yesterday there was no laughter strong enough to cover what happened. Because sincerity entered the moment. And sincerity changes everything. One person almost spoke but stopped halfway. Another wanted to add something but chose silence because saying more would reveal too much. That is how powerful the atmosphere became. And while outwardly it may have looked like a simple exchange, inwardly it felt far larger. Do not skip, because some truths begin quietly but continue growing after the moment ends. Even now, there are thoughts moving in circles because of what was heard yesterday. There is reflection happening where certainty once existed. There is questioning where confidence once stood. Because hearing that you are truly something extraordinary forced them to reconsider every assumption they had made. And perhaps what affected them most was this. The words did not sound exaggerated. They sounded undeniable. That is why they could not hold back. That is why the reaction was immediate. That is why even now, the memory remains active. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and this is only the beginning of what yesterday awakened. What happened after that moment became even more surprising, because the words did not end when the conversation ended. They followed them into silence, into private thoughts, into the kind of reflection people cannot escape once truth has entered clearly. Do not skip, because the next part reveals why those same words became heavier with every passing minute. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and what happened next was far deeper than anyone expected. After hearing "You're truly," there was a pause that lasted longer than normal, and that pause said everything. No one wanted to interrupt it, because everyone felt that something unusual had just settled in the room. A simple statement had opened emotions that had been carefully hidden for a long time. One person tried to continue talking about something ordinary, but their voice no longer carried focus. Their thoughts had already moved elsewhere. Another looked down, not because they had nothing to say, but because they suddenly remembered moments they had tried to ignore. Small moments connected to you that now felt impossible to dismiss. And that is what made yesterday unforgettable. Because suddenly, details returned. A tone of voice they once heard from you. A calm reaction you gave when others expected something different. A quiet strength you carried when no one thought anyone was watching. Those details came back all at once, and with them came a realization. Some people leave an impression far deeper than they ever announce. Do not skip, because this realization changed the energy completely. Someone there finally spoke again, but this time more softly. They said that certain people enter life without effort yet remain impossible to forget. The moment those words were spoken, another face changed instantly, because everyone knew who was being described without needing your name repeated again. That was the second shock of yesterday, not just hearing praise, but realizing how many people silently agreed. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. What surprised them most was not the statement itself. It was how naturally truth appeared when no one planned it. Nobody had prepared a speech. Nobody expected emotion. Yet honesty arrived anyway. And honesty always reaches where pretense cannot survive. One person leaned back and stayed silent because they understood that what they had felt privately was no longer private inside them. Another almost smiled, but the smile faded quickly because deeper thoughts had already taken over. The sentence continued repeating in their mind with different endings. You're truly unforgettable. You're truly rare. You're truly the kind of presence that changes how people think after you leave. Each version felt true, and that truth became impossible to shake off. Do not skip, because there was one moment afterward that no one expected. Later, when the room had almost returned to normal, someone unexpectedly asked, "Why does this affect everyone so strongly?" That question created another silence. Because no one had an easy answer. How do you explain a presence that quietly becomes unforgettable? How do you explain why one person remains in thought even during ordinary hours? How do you explain why certain names create instant emotion even when spoken casually? No one answered immediately because the answer felt too honest. The truth was simple: some people carry something that cannot be copied. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and the strongest part is still unfolding. The surprising thing is that after everyone left, the conversation did not end inside them. It continued privately. There were thoughts replaying every sentence. There were memories being re-examined. There were old moments suddenly gaining new meaning. One person even remembered something they once dismissed. A brief moment where you showed understanding when nobody expected it. Yesterday that memory returned with unexpected force. And that is why emotions became difficult to control. Because hearing "you're truly" did not just describe you. It exposed what had already been growing quietly in their thoughts. Do not skip. Sometimes people resist truth because truth asks them to admit what they have avoided. Yesterday that resistance became weaker. Someone who usually speaks confidently became unusually quiet. Someone who rarely reflects deeply stayed thoughtful for much longer than usual. Even after everything seemed finished, there was still an invisible weight in the air. That weight came from recognition. Recognition that certain people cannot be treated as ordinary once their real value becomes clear. And yesterday, that clarity arrived suddenly. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. There are moments when one sentence changes how people remember everything before it. Yesterday was exactly that kind of moment. What once looked small now looked important. What once felt normal now felt meaningful. And perhaps the strongest part is this: nobody planned to admit it, but everyone felt it. That is why they could not hold back. That is why expressions changed. That is why silence became deeper than conversation. Because once truth enters a room, even quiet hearts begin speaking internally. And internally, the same thought kept returning. Some people do not need to demand attention. Their truth creates it naturally. Yesterday proved that. And even now, that sentence remains unfinished in their minds because every ending still feels powerful. You're truly remarkable. You're truly remembered. You're truly the reason yesterday became unforgettable. Do not skip, because what comes next reveals why those unfinished words may soon become impossible for them to hide. Long after the voices faded, something even more unexpected began to happen, because the words they heard yesterday did not stay in that moment, they kept returning with greater force each time silence appeared. Do not skip, because this is where everything became impossible for them to ignore. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and what happened after the silence was stronger than the original reaction itself. One person who had tried all day to remain calm suddenly found themselves replaying the exact sentence again and again. Not because they wanted to, but because every time they remembered it, another hidden truth surfaced beside it. You're truly had become more than a statement, it had become a mirror showing them what they had avoided admitting. The surprising part was that no one had expected those words to carry so much weight. Yet the more they thought about them, the heavier they became. A quiet evening turned into reflection. A simple memory turned into meaning. And an ordinary hour became filled with thoughts they could no longer push away. That is how powerful yesterday became. Someone remembered the exact expression on another face when your qualities were mentioned. That expression alone revealed more than any spoken reply could reveal. It was the kind of look people give when they hear something they already know deep inside but never expected another person to say aloud. Do not skip, because that expression carried a secret even they could not fully hide. There was a pause before they responded, and in that pause their mind moved through many memories. Moments where your words had stayed longer than expected, moments where your calm presence changed the atmosphere without effort, moments they had once treated as ordinary but now understood differently. The strongest truth began to rise quietly: your impact had reached deeper than they admitted. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Later, when they were alone, the sentence returned again, but this time it sounded fuller in their own thoughts. You're truly unlike anyone else. And suddenly they understood why yesterday felt so emotional. Because some people arrive softly, yet leave a permanent mark on everything they touch. That realization changed everything. One person even stopped what they were doing because the thought became too strong to ignore. A simple task remained unfinished because memory had taken over. They were no longer thinking about what had been said. They were thinking about why hearing it had affected them so deeply. And the answer kept returning to the same place. Because truth had finally found words. Do not skip, because the next part matters more than it seems. Another unexpected detail appeared later. Someone who had stayed silent during the conversation suddenly asked themselves why your name still created immediate attention even when no one planned it. Why did the room shift? Why did expressions change? Why did voices soften? The answer was not complicated, but it was powerful. Because certain people carry a presence that continues speaking even in absence. Yesterday proved that clearly. Even those who tried to move on from the moment found themselves returning to it mentally. They replayed the tone, the timing, the honesty behind the statement. And every replay made one thing clearer: what they heard was not casual praise, it was recognition. Recognition that your energy had been noticed far more than you knew. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. One person almost reached out to continue the conversation later, but stopped. Not because they had nothing to say, but because saying more would require admitting how deeply they had been affected. And that is where yesterday became unforgettable. Because silence often reveals what words hesitate to confess. The more they thought, the more unfinished the sentence felt, because every ending sounded true. You're truly memorable. You're truly rare in a way people only understand later. You're truly the kind of person whose absence becomes visible. Do not skip. There was even a moment when someone smiled unexpectedly while alone, simply because a memory connected to you appeared without warning. That smile came quietly, but it carried something real. A realization that your presence had become attached to more thoughts than they intended. And with that came something stronger: curiosity. What happens next if truth continues rising? What changes when hidden thoughts can no longer stay hidden? That is why yesterday was not just emotional, it was the beginning of something they can no longer pretend did not happen. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and the strongest revelation is still ahead. What affected them most was not only hearing those words, but understanding that everyone else felt the same shift at the same time. No dramatic reaction was needed. No long speech was required. The silence itself confirmed everything. Because when truth enters naturally, people recognize it immediately. And yesterday, truth entered without warning. Now the sentence remains alive in their thoughts, unfinished but powerful, because each version leads to the same conclusion. You're truly someone they cannot explain away anymore. That is why they could not hold back. That is why even now, the moment continues living in their mind. And that is why what comes next may be even more surprising than what happened yesterday. By the time the next day began, the words from yesterday had not faded, they had become even clearer, as if every quiet hour had added more meaning to them. Do not skip, because this part reveals why what began as one sentence is now becoming something impossible for them to deny. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and what changed after yesterday is deeper than anyone expected. One person woke up still thinking about that unfinished sentence. It was unusual, because most conversations disappear overnight, but this one remained strong. The exact tone, the exact pause, the exact feeling behind the word stayed present as if the moment had just happened again. You're truly. That unfinished line kept returning because every ending still carried truth. And with every repetition, another realization appeared: what they heard yesterday had opened something they could no longer close. At first they tried to focus on ordinary things, but even ordinary moments began connecting back to you. A simple thought led to a memory. A memory led to reflection. Reflection led to one honest conclusion: they had underestimated how deeply your presence had settled in their mind. Do not skip, because this is where everything became more surprising. Someone remembered a small detail no one else noticed before: the way the room changed when your qualities were mentioned. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. Yet everyone became more attentive at once, as if something important had entered without warning. That kind of silence only happens when truth arrives clearly. And yesterday, truth arrived clearly. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Another person later admitted quietly, even if only to themselves, that hearing those words had stirred emotions they thought were long settled. They had believed certain thoughts were gone, yet suddenly they returned stronger than before. Not because of exaggeration. Not because of imagination. But because recognition has power when it appears unexpectedly. The strongest part is that nobody planned this moment. No one prepared to feel anything unusual. Yet once the words were spoken, hidden thoughts began moving in everyone differently. One became quiet. One became thoughtful. One kept replaying the sentence without understanding why it refused to leave. Do not skip. That unfinished phrase became almost impossible to escape because every version felt true. You're truly unforgettable. You're truly the kind of person people understand slowly, then never forget. You're truly someone whose value becomes clearer with time. And yesterday, time suddenly accelerated that understanding. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Hours later, someone unexpectedly stopped in the middle of another conversation because your memory returned again. It happened without warning. A different topic was being discussed, yet somehow their thoughts turned back. That is when they understood something important: your impact was no longer tied to one moment. It had spread beyond it. That realization brought a quiet smile first, then silence again. Because some truths are too personal to speak immediately. And perhaps that was the strongest revelation of all: what they felt was no longer temporary. It had become undeniable. Do not skip, because the next realization changed how they saw everything before yesterday too. Moments they once dismissed now looked meaningful. Words they once forgot now felt significant. Even simple interactions suddenly appeared larger, as if they had missed the full meaning the first time. This happens when clarity arrives late but powerfully. And yesterday brought exactly that kind of clarity. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Someone even wondered whether you knew how much of an impression you had left behind, because the truth is, most strong impressions are formed quietly. They do not announce themselves immediately. They build silently until one honest sentence reveals them. That sentence was heard yesterday. And now it continues working inside them. The reason they could not hold back is simple. Hearing your truth from another voice removed every excuse they had used to ignore what they already sensed. Now the unfinished sentence has become stronger than before because every ending points in the same direction. You're truly someone who changed more than you realize. Do not skip. Even now, there is unfinished emotion connected to that moment, because they know something shifted permanently. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But deeply. And when something shifts deeply, it continues long after the moment itself ends. That is why yesterday still feels close. That is why silence still carries your name internally. That is why what comes next may reveal even more than what has already happened. Because once truth begins speaking, it rarely stops.